Gas.
Welcome to All Gas, All Georgia Sports. I'm glad you guys are here. Got a great show for you today. We're going to talk a little Arthur Smith. NFL Week 1 is now over. We're going to talk about that. Going to give you a softball update because I know you guys care so much about my softball team's performance. And we're going to talk a little Braves baseball. But before I do that, we're going to start off the show with a trivia question, as always. And your trivia question today is, how many seasons did Deion Sanders play for the Atlanta Braves? Dual sport athlete. Many of us forget that he was a baseball player. A good one, too. And he played for the Atlanta Braves while he was a Falcon as well. So how many seasons did he actually play for the Braves? So we're going to circle back around to that at the end of the episode. And, we're going to start off with a little reflection, because I need to reevaluate my life. No more woe is me mentality. I'm going to be positive. I started off this show because, I love life. I love sports. I love Atlanta, and I love everything about the Atlanta sporting world and the culture of the fans. I love the Georgia Bulldogs, the Atlanta Hawks, the Atlanta Falcons, the Atlanta Braves. And, after my experience at Mercedes-Benz Stadium on Sunday, I was pretty down. I was pretty bummed. Naturally, as many of us were about the Falcons game. Obviously, it was terrible to be there for that. But you know what? It wasn't. It was great to be at the stadium. It was great to have football in the air, walking around, seeing the tailgating. And you know what? It was great seeing Saints fans. I mean, look, yeah, I can't stand them, but I can at the same time because we need that. I need that in my life. I need that sort of, that animosity, that sort of, they keep my competitive juices flowing, which is ironic because I am in no way competing in any way when I'm watching the games, but I feel like I am when the fans are next to me. So, I take things personally. It's what I do. So I was pretty upset with Saints fans the other day, and I'm not going to say I regret what I said about New Orleans being a P town. Whatever. It is what it is. It's what we do, but I'm not going to let it affect me. I'm not going to carry it with me and the reason why I say that is because I really was upset after the game, seeing the fans in my face, and, I was just getting mad. I was just walking around with that, looking like I ate a lemon, that just kind of that look on my face. I was not a happy person leaving that game, and I felt bad too because my wife had a great time. She was kind of walking on eggshells around me. I don't want to be that guy. And it really came out because at our softball game, which we lost, 14-18, and we had a chance at the end, but just couldn't capitalize. It's we played a good team, and they were talking a little bit of trash, but they were nice. There was a church team, but they were cool dudes. They were kind of giving us a hard time, giving the umps a hard time. It was just, we played them hard, and they, the more competitive they got, the more just angry I got, and I started getting competitive, and I was just in the moment, and I wanted them to say something, and look, if you're walking around and you're like wanting someone to say something, you need to look within, okay? So that's what I'm doing, and I'm going to be just, it's a good day to be alive, you guys, and it's a good day to talk some football, and, I think, too, as I was, going down different rabbit holes online, sitting in my sorrow for the Falcons' loss, I started seeing a lot of like Arthur Smith hate going on. The Arthur Smith hate is real. It's the media's been, I've seen a few headlines that are kind of trashing him, probably because he really has been going after the media lately. He is not nice to the media, and I don't really care. I kind of love it, and maybe it's because it's such a huge difference from the way that Dan Quinn seemed to be with the media. Dan Quinn was kind of happy-go-lucky. Arthur Smith is more no-nonsense kind of guy, and I like that. And maybe it's just because it's different. I mean, things that are different are always fun in the beginning, and so maybe that's it. But I really do like this coach. So there's a lot of Arthur Smith hate going on, saying he's a terrible coach. It's terrible coaching. He's got to get out of there. He's already had his chance. And I just want to talk about Arthur Smith a little bit because it doesn't seem to be the right way to think about this guy yet. I mean, and first and foremost, he went 7-10 last year. Dan Quinn's first year, he went 8-8, so they had one less game. When Dan Quinn was here in the NFL season, but they started out 5-0 in Dan Quinn's first season, and then they ended up doing 8-8 for the rest of the year. So it was kind of middle of the road kind of record. And yeah, 8-8 for Dan Quinn. Would have been, I guess you could say, 7-9 for Arthur Smith, or you could say 6-10. I don't know, but not uncommon for a coach to come in their first year and for them to stumble a little bit, recreating a culture, because you're left with a lot of players that played under the guy before. There's, I think half the battle with the first-year head coach, I would think, would be just trying to iron out the wrinkles from the previous regime, going, okay, what worked, what didn't, what do I want to do differently, and trying to, you get a new staff, it's just, I would imagine that would be a difficult thing. It is in regular business. Anyone who works for a company, and let's say you have a new COO come in and he's trying to change the operations of everything. Well, you also have to kind of iron out old ways of thinking and then implement new ones. So you're not starting off with a blank slate exactly whenever you come into a new situation. I'm going to defend him pretty hard in this segment, so just, bear with me. But where was I going with that? Arthur Smith, yeah, he goes 7-10. And, Kirby Smart, his first year at Georgia was not stellar. Then, of course, the very next year, he goes to the national championship. Dan Quinn's second year, he goes to the Super Bowl. I don't know if that's what Arthur Smith is going to do. That's quite the reach given our roster. But, speaking of roster, the fact that he even won 7 games last year is a minor miracle in and of itself. Because really, aside from like 4 players, our roster was the worst that I've ever seen any Falcons roster since I've started watching this team. Literally, I mean that. We had Matt Ryan, Grady Jarrett, A.J. Terrell, Cordero Patterson was a beast last year. We had Kyle Pitts. There's 5 guys. Aside from those 5 guys, Younghoe Koo will give the kicker some love. Okay, he's legit. But I've said this plenty of times in this podcast. We fielded a damn near high school team last year. It was so. I've said this before. I'll give you the short version this time. But for a long time, I had this theory that any NFL team can be a Super Bowl team with the right coaching. Because I'm like, if you look at the percentage of football players in America, such a tiny fraction of them are in the NFL that the talent is there for every single team. If you make it there, a small percentage of people go from high school to college. A very small percentage of people go from college to the NFL. So by the time you get to this level, you're on such an elevated level of playing that, I'm like, how can you not compete, with the amount of talent? And that theory was completely debunked last year watching the Falcons because it was so visible on the screen at just... our play calling was mostly fine last year. Matt Ryan did everything he could. It's just, we just didn't have the guys. We didn't have the guys. It just wasn't there. The roster was just so thin. So that theory last year completely debunked watching the Falcons all year. So the fact that he won 7 games with that, to me, is incredible. Credit a lot of that to Matt Ryan, and I credit the other half of that, I guess, to Arthur Smith. I really do. Our roster sucked last year. So bad. No receiving depth. It's still kind of rough this year, but even our defensive line depth, that's beefed up this year. Our offensive line actually looked really good in the game on Sunday. Honestly, Marcus Mariota looked like he had more time than Matt Ryan ever had here. So I say all that to go last year to me wasn't a complete failure considering what he had to work with and considering it was the first year. We were all kind of expecting, a new regime. How's it going to look? There's going to be some kinks, that need to get worked out. So whatever. Okay, he won 7 games last year. But in addition to that, just think of who this guy is. Arthur Smith is the son of Frederick Smith. If you don't know who that is, he is the chairman and founder of FedEx. And why is that significant in the football world? Well, he's a minority owner of the Washington Commanders, FedEx Field. And Arthur Smith was on the staff in Washington after he played football in high school and college, and then he did some stuff with UNC. I don't know what order it came in. I think he was at the University of North Carolina working with their offensive line, and then maybe went to the Commanders. But regardless, he was there for 2 years just as a staff member, like staff assistant. It was an entry level job, and of course, he got that job, I'm sure, because of his dad. That makes sense. I don't fault him for it. It is what it is. You make the best with the cards that are dealt. But he chose to leave Washington. In his own words, he said, I knew my time there was done, and he knew that he had to separate himself from that family tie professionally. Sounds like they have a great family, a huge family. I think he's got like 8 siblings. But he's been quoted plenty of times saying, look, like, I can't stand when people are born into wealth and think that they did something. He does seem to have that kind of mentality, and he chose to leave Washington to go coach elsewhere. I know he was on staff at Ole Miss for a little bit, then he made his way to the Tennessee Titans, was there for about 7 years as a defensive guy for a while, and then he went through 3 different coaching changes, like head coaching changes at Tennessee, and he stayed on staff for all 3. So that tells you something about him, because when new people come in, they're kind of purging the old staff and bringing in their own guys. That's a part of that process. It's not personal. It's just what you do. And the fact that he stayed through 3 different head coaches, to me, says something about what he was bringing to the table. So he goes over to the offensive side of the ball, because one of the coaches that he had, I don't think this was Vrabel that said this, and I got this off of an ESPN article, by the way. I'm not quoting it as I'm talking about this. I just recently read it, and so I just want to make sure I give some credit to that. But, this guy was like, hey, look, for where you want to go in your career, it's going to be best if you move over to the offensive side of the ball. So he worked with the O-line at Tennessee. Then he went into the tight end room. Jordan Palmer had great things to say about Arthur Smith when he had to come in and play with not having much experience with the team at Tennessee. And he had rave reviews for just the type of person and coach and how smart he was. But the players all loved him. They said his energy was fantastic. He's really thorough. He's willing to sit there and get into the weeds with you and coach you hard. And he ended up becoming the offensive coordinator at Tennessee with Vrabel, and he revitalized Ryan Tannehill's career. I mean, you have Derrick Henry. I know a lot of people say, well, anyone could succeed with that guy, but you can't, Ryan Tannehill did that. He had the second best passer rating in the entire league a couple years ago. He legitimately did that, and Arthur Smith is a huge reason for it. And even Derrick Henry, I'm sure he would credit a lot of his success to Arthur Smith, because you got to have guys who are coaching the guys up, getting people on the same page, calling the right plays, putting people in a position to be successful. So he did that at Tennessee at a very high level, to where all these teams wanted him once he became a candidate for a head coach. So look, Arthur Smith is the real deal. I know that he blew the lead, okay? He blew the lead. I know the stats of out of 5 of the biggest blown leads in the last 2 years, 3 of them belong to the Falcons. Obviously, dating back to the Super Bowl, it feels like this team just can't stop reliving the Super Bowl. They just can't stop doing it. It's insane. It is absolutely unacceptable. It's ridiculous. They have to fix that. They know it. We know it. And I don't really like the whole Falcons curse thing. For me, I feel like the Falcons thing is more appropriate for the previous regime with that Super Bowl team and the roster that we had in the few years that followed that, because it was a lot of the same guys, the same faces. And for them, it was man, you guys just really can't stop doing this. And it just seemed mental. You would just watch them on the sidelines and you'd see it in their eyes. And I'm not a mind reader. I'm no expert here, but it just seemed so just blatantly obvious that these guys are just in their heads and need to just change scenery. And I wish all of them well. But, this regime, still carrying that on. And now we're starting to get into superstition, where it's the Falcons just do this, it's like the Cubs not winning the World Series. And it's a new coach probably stepped into the Cubs organization in the 90s and went, I haven't done this, this is a new chance for we have new players, a new staff and all that. So, I'm sure that those narratives surrounding a city, and the more that the media hypes it up, the more that the fans do, and how can we not? I mean, it's what we've experienced, but I'm sure the more that we do this, it puts that energy out there into the world, and I'm sure it gets into the heads of these players. The players hear it, the coaches hear it, but I just don't really I'm not ready to write this guy off yet. He just had one game in his second year as a head coach, and we were a blocked kick away from maybe winning, albeit that was a long field goal attempt. But I mean, I don't know. I was watching Young Wei Koo warm up. He was hitting them from that deep in the warm up, so he's got the leg for it. But that kick doesn't get blocked. We win the game. Oh my God. We're turning a new leaf. You know what I mean? It's that quick. So I guess I'm not ready to write this guy off because we looked really good on Sunday, and yeah, we looked good, but of course, totally understandable. But just a lot of hate for this coaching staff right now, and I just don't think it fits. So I'm still a believer. I like what I've seen out of Arthur Smith. I like his moxie. I like the vibe that the Falcons got right now. I like just the way that they all seem in interviews. Maybe it's just because it feels less fake to me. Even in the player interviews after practices and post games, I watch all that stuff. And years prior, it seemed like they were all kind of faking it till they made it with their excitement, their enthusiasm, the way they talked about things. And I understand why, because they were 10 minutes away from winning the Super Bowl. But this team just seems it doesn't seem quite as flowery. It seems much more whatever. Maybe this is a little loose of a way to define a football team. But okay, grit week, right? That was a big thing. They seem like they have grit. And I might be proven wrong, but I have high hopes for the Falcons. I always will. So if you're tuning in, I'm assuming you're a Falcons fan, and you do too. So yeah, big Arthur Smith fan. Still have a lot of hope for him. Excited to see what they do. And look, and they might lose to the Rams. I mean, the Rams are good. They're the Super Bowl champions. They might go to LA and lose. Wouldn't be shocked. But I'm really curious to see how they're going to play them, because they played what is a much more talented on paper Saints team really well on Sunday. And I don't think anyone expected them to even, have the chance to win like they did. Everyone in the NFL world was expecting them to have no chance. And not only that, now the narrative is oh my God, I can't believe that they almost had him. You know what I mean? So, yeah, can't wait. We'll see what they do. So go Arthur Smith. I'm a fan. I got you, buddy. So Monday Night Football just happened. The Mannings are great. ESPN2, they have the Manning cast, Peyton and Eli. I don't care about most of the guests that they have. I really would be fine if the whole show was just them being those guys, being the quarterbacks analyzing the game. It's fascinating. I get the same sort of reaction when I watch Aaron Rodgers on the Pat McAfee show. Every Tuesday they have him on. They've had him on for a few seasons now on Tuesdays. And it's just it's great getting to hear these guys. I mean, these quarterbacks really are next level. I've been watching football pretty much all my life. Just as a fan, you know how fans get, how we are. We know a lot about the game. Fans do. Give us credit. It's okay. We can give ourselves some credit. We're not dummies. It's hilarious seeing my wife's reaction to when I know about a player's collegiate career in the NFL teams they've played on. And I was telling her about Geno Smith, about his, whole getting punched in New York thing, and the story behind that, and how it was over just a few $100, and the guy that hit him got released right away, but it was a really horrible thing, and he wasn't the same after that. And then how he was a beast in college and highly drafted, and now he's getting this resurgence in Seattle. I could just have all this on the top of my head. And when it comes to the game itself, it's I just know a lot about the game. But when I watch these guys or listen to these guys, obviously, of course, everyone's going to say, well, duh, they're NFL quarterbacks. But it is truly astounding to hear them talk and immediately just I'm just all ears. I just want to soak every bit of it in, because I realize how dumb I actually am and how little I actually know compared to their just wealth of knowledge. It's fascinating listening to these guys. So honestly, on the Manning cast, don't have any guests. I don't care. I mean, just talk about football the whole time. And some of the guests are better than others, but it is kind of awkward sometimes when they have guests, because they're trying to analyze the game while like asking these kind of prepped questions for these guests and trying to set them up to be entertaining. And some of them do a better job than others, but I swear I would be okay with just no more guests. I just want to hear you talk about football because um, I just feel so dumb when I watch them, and I love it. I love it. It's amazing. Aaron Rodgers was talking on the Pat McAfee show just this last week, or just well, it was today actually, or yesterday if you're hearing this on Wednesday. And he was talking about his cadence. He was talking about, the numbers and letters that he uses and how different things mean different things and different ways you can try and do a hard count and get someone to jump. And it's just like, just the detail that goes into being a quarterback. It's a great day to be a sports fan because I think prior to like the Manning cast, but even just podcasts, I would have no way to access this information from these guys. You know what I mean? Like pre-podcasts, you wouldn't really get any segments where you have a quarterback talking for just 40 uninterrupted minutes just about the game of football. And hearing the Mannings do it, I'm just a kid in a candy store. I love it. I can't get enough of it. It's fascinating stuff. I really respect the amount of bandwidth that these guys have, and how much information they just carry with them for every single play. It's so cool, man. It's the NFL. Being the quarterback, I mean, there's a reason they get paid more than anyone else. You have to just operate on an entirely different level, and I think any sport. I mean, like it's yeah, it's great. Love football. Football's back. So Monday Night Football was fun. I 2 fumbles on the goal line for the Broncos, and you know what? I'm going to get into my I have a 1-sentence review for every single game, so I'm going to get into that here in a second. But I'm going to share a very unpopular opinion. Very unpopular opinion is. So the fumbles on the goal line for the Broncos reminded me of course, the interception in the Super Bowl with the Seahawks and the Patriots. My unpopular opinion is I don't think that was that bad of a call by the Seahawks. I don't. I've told this to my friends. I get shit every time I bring it up. I don't care. I stick by it. Look, Russell Wilson just won you a Super Bowl the year before. He drives you down the field late in the game. He's got the hot hand. He's your guy. He's the face of the city. He's the face of the franchise. I know you have beast mode. You got a lot of other great players. You have that legendary defense, but Russ is the guy. He is the quarterback. He's the one who has all that information. He's processing it quickly and he's making plays. He gets your team down to that, to that spot on the goal line, and you roll with it. You ride with the hot hand. Like when I was watching that game in real time, when he dropped back to pass, I didn't immediately think, oh my God, what are you doing? That's so stupid. Now, a lot of people probably did. I just didn't. So maybe I'm just dumb, but I mean, that's the classic example to me of if he doesn't throw a pick and they win the Super Bowl, what a great call. Yeah, of course you ride with the hot hand and Russell Wilson. He got you there, let him take you home. You know what I mean? I think that's just maybe the most egregious example of, the armchair quarterback, I think, ever. And look, I know people on the staff have since, gone back and said, yeah, it was a bad call. Marshawn Lynch right away was like, that was a terrible call. You have me in the backfield. I get it. I know that the players and the coaches, they've all come out and said it. But in that moment, at that time, when everything was on the line right there, Russ got you there. He was on fire, was looking great in the fourth quarter, and you just go with it. And like I just referenced, when I listen to these quarterbacks, I realize how little I actually know about football. So take all this with a grain of salt, I guess. But it just reminded me of that, and I wanted to share that. And so, I might get blasted for it. I don't care, because it's, I think that might be, of all of the sports, overreactions, that might be up there in the top, 5 for me, of people thinking that that's the worst call ever in NFL history. I just don't agree. I disagree. Contextually, in that moment, I was like, okay, yeah, run it, go quick. Let's go. Game time, Last few seconds of the game, go, 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 go. Call it up. Okay, Russ has gotten you here. Let's let him finish it. I got it. I get it. So yeah, I don't know. That reminded me of that though, because those fumbles were bad. that was pretty bad. That was really bad. What are some other overreactions? Oh, the Cubs. What was the name of the guy who the Cubs fan that reached over and stopped Moises Alou from catching that ball? Cubs fan. Oh man, tip of the tongue. Tip of the tongue. Here, I'm looking it up because I'm not going to be able to shake this. Steve Bartman. I thought it was Bartman. Okay. Yeah, the Bartman thing. They go, he's the reason why they didn't advance. I'm like, I don't know. It was one foul ball. You're really going to say that he's the entire reason? I get it. The game fell apart. It's a great story, but I mean, even that's like a crazy overreaction. Like, I don't know. If I was, I really do. I think about things like that, and I'm like, if I was sitting there, would I have not tried to catch a foul ball that was like right within my reach? Like, I don't know. I probably would have tried to catch it. What a bummer for that guy. Dude, he got blasted, dude. Oh man. He there was a whole documentary about him. I think it was a 30 for 30. Yeah, Steve Bartman. Sorry, buddy. And yeah, it's I get it. Everything that followed that was bad for the Cubs, but yeah, security had to escort him out of the park. He was getting shit thrown at him, and oh, buddy, yeah, that's bad. But yeah, okay, there's another example. I think that's an overreaction. Are you really going to put the entire game on that one guy? I don't know. I guess you can. I think it's silly. But yeah, so I guess two unpopular opinions. So moving on, NFL standouts. Week 1, I have one sentence for each game, so I'm going to fly through these real quick. So Brady's going to be Brady all year again. Geno Smith is back. The Vikings are for real. The Cardinals stink. The Giants got some juice to them. That was exciting. Carson Wentz is just great TV. Love it. Justin Herbert is elite, next level guy. Ties feel worse than losing. Indy and Houston tied, and I just, there's something, it's like a gnat flying around your head when you see that third one all year. I just couldn't imagine. It feels like you just want to just put your hand over it every time you look at your record. Baker couldn't deliver the knockout punch he was hoping for. I know he was really kind of gassed up to show the Browns what's up, but, sorry, buddy. Are the Dolphins that good, or are the Pats really over? We'll see how the rest of the season plays out, but Patriots get spanked down in Miami. The Bengals might be hungover. At least Joe Burrow might be through, was it 4 picks? Maybe had 5 turnovers total. Not good, Joe. The QB controversy is going to be the headline all year in San Francisco. That's just all you're going to hear about. I mean, what a horrible situation that is. I mean, just you almost it's like, God, would you... Now, I think I know the answer to this question, but it's tempting to think would you rather just make the mistake and let the wrong guy go than have this? I mean, that's going to be so loud all year unless Trey Lance becomes Aaron Rodgers. I mean, I don't know. I don't know how else you shut that up. At this point, I really want the Lions to win. It's just, come on, guys. It's they need it. The Bills are scary good at everything. That's just that. They're amazing. They're incredible. The Jets are going to jet, and the Falcons need to break free for all our sake. For all of Falcons Nation, Falcons need to break free of this thing. Either just lose or win, but don't lose like that. You got to stop losing like that. It's real. I'll defend them all day. I'll have hope for them all day. I'll defend Arthur Smith. I'm always going to, but, it's like... Yeah, they got to stop. They got to stop it. They got to finish. So, see if I want to elaborate any more on any of those kind of quick sentences here. I mean, yeah, Geno Smith, it was good to see him back. I was talking to my wife about that last night. Just about his whole kind of story in New York, because if you remember, he got his jaw broken from a teammate in New York, and it was over something very minuscule. I want to say there was some situation where Geno didn't go to some sort of football camp that this defensive lineman maybe was holding, and There was a scuffle over like a few $100. Maybe he had bought a plane ticket. I don't know the whole deal, but basically, this guy broke Geno Smith's jaw in the locker room and immediately, of course, was let go and should never see a football field again. But Geno Smith, he had kind of a disappointing start to his career. He was very highly drafted, and then after that happened, he kind of just fizzled out, and like we haven't heard from him much. I knew he's been in Seattle as a backup for a while. I thought Drew Lock was going to start. Honestly, I didn't even think that Geno. I just Geno Smith's been off my radar for a long time, and my wife and I were talking about this because I remember there was a lot of people when the jaw incident happened. A lot of the talk was like, how could Geno Smith get himself into this situation? And I remember someone on the Giants was interviewed, and they were like, you know, how would you see Eli Manning reacting to this kind of thing? And basically the guy was like, this wouldn't happen to Eli Manning. This would never happen to Eli Manning, which I believe is true, by the way. But then, of course, the narrative came of like, what kind of leader is Geno Smith? What kind of person is he? What kind of person gets himself into a position like this with a teammate where he's going to get, hit like that? And like, my wife, I think, made a good point. She's like, look, like, okay, maybe a young guy made a mistake, sure, but like, you know, with a situation like that where someone gets their jaw broken over few $100, is it really fair to say like, is it his fault for getting himself in that situation, or was he just dealing with a psycho? Because yeah, you do that, you're a psycho, dude. You gotta go. And so I don't know if that was completely fair to Geno Smith, and I don't know how much that really kind of. I mean, I'm sure it affected him. Obviously, it affected him. Duh. But I vividly remember that narrative, being a big part of that story of like, what does this say about Geno Smith? Almost more so, at least from my memory, more so, what does this say about the defensive lineman? And like, so like, I guess it was pretty cool seeing him come back and not just play good, but play great. I mean, he played a really good game. He was efficient. I think in the first half he was like 17 for 18, something insane. He just completed everything, and he was making plays too, moving around with his legs. He threw the ball great. So good for you, man. I mean, I have no idea what went down back in New York, and I have no idea what's going on in your life since. But my message to you is good job, man. Go kick some ass. Congratulations on that win. But great game. I mean, it was a weird game. Russ being back in Seattle, of course, was the big story there. But Broncos fans, I think you got a lot to be encouraged about. I mean, you had two different touchdown opportunities that were blown on mistakes that can be fixed. It was a fumble. I mean, those things happen. You can fix those things. I'm sure both those guys are going to have balls, stapled to their hands for the next 2 weeks. So, yeah, exciting stuff there. The Giants, I caught the end of that game. Man, Saquon looks good, doesn't he? Drafted him in both my leagues. What's up? Saquon Barkley, he had a game. Dude had maybe like 140 yards or something and a touchdown, but he was just running violent. He was running the way that I remember seeing him at Penn State. When he was at Penn State, I remember watching that guy, and he stood out so much over everyone else that it was like, I watched one Penn State game that year because it was on prime time, and I think they were playing Notre Dame or something. You got one look at the guy and you went, oh, okay, he's going to be great. He's amazing. He's better than everybody. He just, that's it. And, his first season or two in the NFL, he kind of carried that over. He's been considered a generational type talent, and he's been, his career has been, there's been some speed bumps with injuries, obviously. He's barely played the last couple seasons, and going into each of those years, he's had high hopes just because of what we've seen from him, but he's kind of fallen off. I mean, I think in my fantasy drafts, if this tells you anything, over the last couple of years, he was being taken like number one overall, like the last 2 years. And I think I picked him up in like the fourth. So people have just forgotten about Saquon Barkley, man. And like, the dude looks healthy, and he was running with that same kind of ferocity that I remember seeing him run with in college and when he first came into the league. So happy for him. That's great, man. Saquon is back big time, so he looks great. Justin Herbert, he is that good. He's actually that good. The Bengals, what a weird game that was, right? First half, Joe Burrow had, I think, 4 picks in the first half. Now, I think the Bengals are going to be okay because I do believe in Joe Burrow. I mean, how do you not at this point? He's the truth. He's great. He came back. He's going to be fine. I know their supposed revamped offensive line did not look too revamped, but you also had a couple of doinks. You had a couple of missed field goals. One of the field goals was blocked. It went to overtime. The Bengals came back from being down. So I said in my one sentence that they look hungover. That could be real, but it also could just be week one, so it's so fun after week one, isn't it? Like, basically, like, the stories are written after week one, and then, I mean, think about last year. The Panthers go 4-0 to start the year last year with Sam Darnold at the helm, and a year later, they get a pretty high draft pick, and now they have a new quarterback. So it's like, and they were in the Deshaun Watson sweepstakes. So yeah, it's just funny how, I mean, a lot of times people say after 4 weeks, that's when you really see what a team's all about. After week 4, I remember hearing, I think it was maybe, was it Hugh Douglas or Shannon Sharp? I've heard this take by a few different ex-NFL guys, but they say week 4 is when teams really find their groove. And I don't know. I mean, every year seems to start one way and end a totally different way. The only things that I think are going to be a constant this year, I think it's a safe bet to say that the Chiefs and the Bills are going to be great. Tom Brady's going to be good. Those are probably pretty good bets. But if you're riding off the Packers, don't. That's dumb. Aaron Rodgers will be fine. If you're gonna, I don't know. Even the Cardinals, I mean, they just did not look good. Kyler Murray, I don't know if he's their guy, but even them, it's like, I don't know. You also played the Chiefs opening day, and yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if they rattled off 4 in a row, and then you go, oh yeah, that one game. It's just you never know what can happen. So yeah, that's about all I got for the NFL recap. But man, it's just like I said, it's back. We've got that autumn crisp in the air. Today I had the door open during the day just to feel the air come through. It was like 56 degrees this morning. Early this morning it was in the 50s. I mean, chilly, I mean, God, it's a beautiful thing. Free utility month is right around the corner. October, yeah, just turn off everything. It's fine. You'll be fine. No AC bill, no heating bill. Just let it ride. You'll be just fine. And it's the best time of the year. Best time of the year. September through like December. I mean, really from now till Christmas, it's the best. So welcome back, everybody. Give yourself a round of applause. We made it. We're here. And go Falcons, man. Get your shit together. Let's go. Go Falcons. So to end the episode, I'm going to talk a little bit about the Braves, but not too much. I mean, I'm not going to lie to you. I only have so much time in the day, We have a young child, we've got things going on in our life, and it's I've been so excited for football that I don't know if there was any chance that I was going to not be 100% football this week. So I don't have much specific Brave stuff to talk about other than the fact that they're playing right now while I'm recording, so I don't have the results of the game against the Giants. But they have lost 2 in a row. They lost to the Mariners and lost to the Giants. And they're playing the Giants again tonight. And the Mets have also lost 2 in a row. So it's kind of one of those things where we're still a game and a half back. If we end up beating the Giants, then we're going to be a half game back. So we're still right there. But doesn't this feel just on theme for the last 2 months? Where we inch our way closer, we get right there, and then we just can't, we can't close them. Come on, Atlanta. We got to get some, we got to bury them. We got to finally take, we got a taste of the lead, just a few days ago, and then it slides right back. So I still have confidence in the fact that the Braves have the experience. They're a deep team, I just trust him. I don't know. I trust Snit. Kind of the same thing, just like Arthur Smith. With all this Brian Snicker hate this year, chill. We got no reason to close the book on him. That's a silly, ridiculous take. Anyone who says that Snicker's terrible, it's like, okay, really? Okay, well, I guess we'll just, let's not have him over the last couple of years and see what we would be like. So, go Braves, I'm going to check on the score, at least since I'm talking about it. Braves... They are currently winning 4-1 in the bottom of the 4th, and the Mets lost to the Cubs. They've dropped 2 in a row to the Cubs. Suck it. So Braves are up 4-1 in the bottom of the 4th at this very moment. Hopefully that stays the case throughout the rest of this game, because if it does, we'll be a half a game back. Then we have the Giants again tomorrow in the afternoon. So to cap this thing off, circle back around to our trivia question. If you remember, the trivia question to start the show was, how many seasons did Deion Sanders play for the Atlanta Braves? And the answer to that is 3. He played 3 seasons for the Atlanta Braves in 1991, 1992, and 1993. Here's a fun fact for you. In 1992, he batted .304, his highest batting average ever in his baseball career for a season. And, you might be thinking, oh, what, did he get 2 at-bats? No. He actually, in that season, got the second most at-bats of any season in his career. That year, he had 325 at-bats. He had 1 season with more at-bats later in his baseball career. Maybe it was Cincinnati or Seattle, I can't remember. But he had like 379 with one other team. But other than that, 325 in 92 was his second most at-bats, and batted .304 that year. So the dude could run. What an amazing athlete. Generational type talent. Honestly, I wish I was... I don't often wish I was older, but there's a couple guys like, man, I wish I could have gotten my own eyes on Herschel Walker, on Bo Jackson, on Deion Sanders. It's like when I describe what it was like watching Michael Vick, and just how your eyes just couldn't leave the screen when he was on the field. That's how those guys have been described to me. So I've watched plenty of highlights, obviously. I've seen about any documentary that I can get my hands on when it comes to those guys, but still, man, it would have been pretty cool to see those guys live. But Deion Sanders played 3 seasons with the Atlanta Braves, and, he had an interesting ride here in Atlanta. Did not particularly like the media, but he has spoken very highly of Bobby Cox. He said Bobby Cox was my guy. And yeah, man, go Braves. So thank you as always for listening. I hope you have an awesome day. It's Wednesday. So remember, at the end of this day, you're counting down to the weekend. It's when you're counting up, it's kind of just, okay, next thing. But then once you hit that halfway point and you start coming down on the other side, then it's the countdown, baby. So after today, once you clock out for the day, man, you're basically at the weekend. It's here. It's coming. And then we got more football. Georgia plays South Carolina to start their SEC games, whatever. Series. SEC play starts on Saturday against South Carolina, and yeah, it's going to be here before we know it. So go have an awesome day. Go make someone's day. Go do some good in the world. Go be, I hope that I have, what's the word I'm looking for? Portrayed some enthusiasm, some happiness today, as opposed to maybe Monday's episode where I was a little more down in the dumps. So, if you can take anything from this, carry my enthusiasm and my love for this beautiful city out with you into the week and go kick some ass. So thank you as always for listening. Have a good one, and I will talk to you guys. Oh, actually, let me go ahead and give you a disclosure. I am probably going to, so I'm going out of town Thursday, and I'm going to come back Sunday. So I might, I'll have an episode for you guys on Thursday, but not on Friday. Usually it's Monday, Wednesday, Friday. This week is getting a little off, so I'll have one for you tomorrow, maybe. But yeah, anyways, it's going to be a little off this week. We'll be fine. Love you. Thank you as always for listening. See you next time.